Welcome back to the 7th grade mustache. On today's episode, we're speaking about smart cities. Smart cities are a buzzword that's been tossed around throughout the media, throughout city halls across the United States, throughout development programs and bureaus all throughout the world. For example, in 2014, the Prime Minister of India backed a program to start 100 smart cities in the country of India. Also, in Indonesia, their prime minister has also backed the plan to start 100 smart cities in the country of Indonesia. Smart cities are pushed as these benevolent projects that can change society in wonderful ways and automate all of our everyday issues. But the truth is, they don't address basic needs. What smart cities do is they target a very specific demographic, ignoring marginalized groups such as minorities, women, handicapped people, children. It is something that is being used to push a control mechanism down the throats of everybody on the planet Earth, but it's done with a heaping spoonful of sugar. Smart cities are the kingdom of Janus. Janus, in ancient Roman religion and myth, was the god of beginnings, transitions, duality, doorways, passages, frames, endings, and time, depicted as having two faces, looking to the future and to the past. And consider the fact that smart cities appear to be benign, but in actuality, they are quite harmful in their practices and their use.
I think one of the big things that they trick you with, and we've talked about this before, is that it's going to stop crime or it's going to protect you or makes it easier for you to find services. I want to find a restaurant. Look, now you're making it convenient to just be alive. And anything that hurts you or anything that's difficult, like I got robbed the other day. Now, here's a problem, and this is probably most cities in America. Somebody literally broke the window of my vehicle and stole one of my guns. The issue with this, the cops are so overwhelmed. I'm like, hey, you gonna take some fingerprints? He's like, nah, bro. You want fingerprints? You got to bring the vehicle down to the impound lot for us. And this. I'm like, but ain't that contaminating the crime scene? Ain't that doing all? I've seen all the TV shows. The point being is that they'll tell you things like this makes it harder for crime or people can't get away. And so that sounds like something you want. So of course you're going to sign up for that shit. But that's a knee-jerk reaction. Like for me right now, I'm pissed as hell. But I've had weapons stolen before. I'm pissed. I want to do something about it, but I'm not going to give up all my liberties. I'm not going to give up all this stuff for convenience. Now the fact is this: I made a mistake. I learned my lesson. It won't happen again. But the fact that you're going to just relinquish all your freedoms, you're going to give up all the things that you hold dear just so you can feel safe. And remind you, I said feel safe, not be safe. And that's another thing. We're all about feelings now, touchy feely. So I want to feel like I'm coated in honey and I'm protected. No, it doesn't work like that. And that's just a feeling. That's not your reality. And something that me and my brother talked about off the air was that, like, gradually, with all the things China's doing, they're gradually taking you closer to socialism and communism. And the joke that my brother made, like, hey, everybody's gonna be living in apartments, ain't nobody gonna own shit, and we laughed. That's really happening. They're gradually doing it. That shit.
What happens when you lease an apartment or you rent an apartment? If you do something to break that lease, you'll be evicted. You'll be kicked out. You'll be locked out. The same will happen in a smart city. You'll be locked out of the smart city and not allowed to return. Banished. Banished from a smart city in the same way people were banished from cities in ancient times. Another form of control.
Your lease. Yes, you violate your lease, they'll kick you out.
These technocrats that are creating these smart cities, they see people as smoothly moving pixels on a colorful 3D graphic display, moving from work to the storefront, to home again, to the doctor's office, to entertainment venues. They don't see you as people, they see you as data. Data that can be monetized and utilized.
One of my homeboys worked for the railroad. He spent like I want to say 900,000 on a house, and he was raising dogs. They said nope, you can't have. He had to go put his dogs down. He said I gave some to my family, but I had 8 dogs. You literally can't have more than 2 dogs in this area. You know they got noise ordinance and shit like that. He had to put his dogs down. See, okay, this is the whole smart city thing is that you're believing that I'm keeping up with the Joneses. I spent all this money. I have rights. No, if you're in the wrong area, you don't. The early adopter is also it's the guy standing in line for the iPhone. It's fashionable to have this. Yeah, this is just the next evolution of this whatever thing. The only thing we had when we were coming up was your idea of a smart city was okay. They would direct traffic to other areas so you wouldn't have a traffic jam. Remember they remember when we were kids they were talking about the traffic lights would act differently during rush hour, shit like that. That was a smart city. That was a whole okay. Like you know what, I-80 is booked up, so it'll divert traffic other ways and stuff like that. They hit you with the safety, like okay, that means the police can respond faster to car accidents. If an accident happens, they'll know right away. Look, let me tell you something. Police ain't responding no faster now. Please don't misunderstand me. You got 33 million motherfuckers out of work, so that gives you 33 million chances for people to do illegal shit because they ain't got nothing else to do. And so that's
There
what
they go
we're
with that number
damn near
again.
every city's having. Say what?
There they go with that number. It has to be 33.
That's funny for other reasons, but you're a dick. But the whole thing is that they convince you that you'll have you'll have better service from your professionals, from your police force. And like I said, our city's going through it right now. I just was watching the news last night. These cats just trying to rob a gun store. Luckily, these people had bars on the window, and then another brother had a little snow cone place over south. They busted in his shit, just and when they break in, if they don't find money, they just destroy the place just for shits and giggles. So yeah, how come the police ain't seeing that? You got footage, that they ain't dusting for fingerprints. They ain't got time. Nigga, motherfucker get cut. There's
Listen,
blood
listen.
in evidence. Like
Cops
I
are
said,
doing
it
that.
ain't like
They're
on TV.
behaving that way. They're behaving that way right now, especially because they want to act like some little spoiled little kid who wants to take their ball home.
They're
When
punishing us for speaking up. They are punishing America for speaking up. So
exactly.
what I'm saying is we already got cameras in place. We already got all these different things in place. How come ain't nobody getting arrested? Like shit, we still got what 48 unsolved murders. I don't live in a small town. I live in a medium-sized city. So what I'm saying is that these promises they're making, it's not going to work. And next thing that they'll be asking for more police officers. And okay, you ain't back in the day you had to have a perfect record. You ain't got to have a perfect record no more. And these motherfuckers were still Klan members with perfect records. And having a perfect record means that you don't get in trouble. Doesn't mean you ain't doing trouble. I had a good friend that was a cop. He said, "Hey, Ren, I ain't started breaking the law until I became a cop." He straight up says hey, until I became a cop, I didn't break the law. Then you become a cop, and next you know, duct tape. I'm always breaking the law. Like you can't help yourself. So yeah, this whole idea that these police are so good, and that's another thing. All over Facebook right now. That's the big thing is that they love to expose the criminal record of any black person that gets killed by the cops. How come they don't expose the record of the cops? That's because that police union won't let you. But why don't you expose the record of the cops and see what the hell they've been doing? And then you'll recognize that a lot of these motherfucking cops ain't these squeaky clean people. You got rapists, child molesters, drunk, beat their wives, when they get divorced, all that crazy shit. So,
Okay,
so
okay, 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 okay. So,
I'm sorry, I'm on a rant.
but the thing that the smart cities, they promise to create new businesses and expanded horizons, and that's good, and that's great. But that's only good for people that will be part of that system. Because if you are a blue collar guy who runs his own business that works with his hands, that's not part of this new grid system, that's not signed up, that doesn't have all the checks and balances and like all the certificates and all this stuff, you will not be able to function in this new city. So what people need to consider is that what these cities going to be, what they're going to be, they're going to be the new version of an ancient Babylonian style, Egyptian style city where there's a wall up around it. It's going to be an invisible wall. And outside that wall are the wilderness or the wastelands.
Hmm.
And inside that protected wall is this bubbling utopia, this brave new world where there'll be limited human contact, there'll be limited live art. And when I say live art, I'm talking about stand up comedy. I'm talking about live musical performances. I'm talking about cinema. Talking about things that people gather together in a space and enjoy together. There'll be limited things like this. There'll be people inside their homes under surveillance incarceration, and they are experiencing a limited life where they have their home is a gym, their home is a doctor's office, their home is a school.
Is disguised as safety.
So, but check this out. But see, so the problem I'm having with this, there's no longer the exclusivity of privacy. So you're not exclusively private in your home anymore because now you have all these people coming in your home through this broadband internet portal. You have the doctor coming in your home. You have a personal trainer coming in your home. You have the school coming in your home, checking up on you and checking up on your kids. You have all these people that are coming into this place that was once a sacred fortress of solitude, which it is not anymore. Because now these people are looking in through the window, they're looking in through the porthole, and they can see, well, you see that book on his bookshelf when he's talking to me? I can see the books in his office, and the books in his office on the shelf are kind of thought provoking and revolutionary.
Subversive.
They're subversive. Yeah. And then you see how he put his hand on his child's shoulder when he wanted the child to get out of get off the Zoom call or the video call. That seems like that may be an abusive sign, which in actuality be like, all right, son, it's time for dinner. It's they're what they're doing is it's becoming a micromanagement OCD society inside that protected Babylonian wall, where on the outside are the free people and the wildlings.
They're creating homegrown snitches, and the kids will be telling on their own parents. And that was always an entry point into the home because they're being educated by a socialist teacher, and like I said, we see it right now. There's a big like BLM agenda being pushed in schools, which they're teaching Marxism, they're teaching socialism, they're teaching all this other stuff in schools, and like, oh, you don't own it's not just about sharing and cooperating like when we grew up, like, hey, you got to share, it's you don't own anything, he doesn't own anything, and you have a right to the shit that he worked for. And wow, wait, what? And so I remember Cooper was talking about that our access point would be our children, and you start teaching your children, because you go to work, you send your kid to school, you might have to go to daycare for 2 or 3 hours, and you pick them up, and the whole time, like, hey, what did you learn today? Yeah, I learned math. No, I learned social studies. No, you're not learning none of that shit. You're learning how to be a little Marxist dickhead, and people don't realize that. And then your kids start snitching on you. Your kids will start telling, like, hey, daddy bought from here. My dad buys fruits, but he won't buy from the local store.
Why doesn't he buy that? Tell me what your dad says when he talks about the other store. Tell me what your dad's opinion of his neighbors is. Tell me what your dad's opinion of your mommy is when she comes home from work. Why? It ain't none of your fucking business.
And if you don't believe that, remember the war on drugs. How many, when we were kids, we knew 1 or 2 people that turned their parents in for using drugs. And I'm like, all them cats, they all smoking weed now. But it's just funny because literally, because of this war on drugs, we became snitches. And I didn't, because I ain't telling shit. I got, my mom said, whatever happens in this house stays in this house. But that's what we see. We see it. We saw it being practiced back then. Now it's being perfected now. So yeah, it's the whole guise of safety and crime, and you're not a criminal, so you ain't got nothing to worry about. That is a complete. That is, how should I say that is the dominating society imprinting stuff.
It's a lie.
Yeah, and they push it on you, and you're like, well, that's logical. We all want to be logical. No, it's not logical. Not if you actually think about it. And people nowadays don't like thinking. They like knowing, and they like believing in shit, but they don't think, because if you think, that's bad. If you question, that's bad. And
okay,
like I said, anytime you tell your kids to read 1984 and there's some George Orwellian shit, oh, no big deal, Dad, you're an idiot. Like, nah, that's not true.
All right, let's talk about the 3 layers of a smart city. The first layer is the Internet of Things: smart sidewalks, driverless cars, smart bridges, illuminated pavement that melts snow and ice, potholes that can be fixed in one day.
Immediately.
Hold
Yep.
on.
Yep.
The second layer is the invisible data streams that constantly improve and upgrade themselves. In other words, that's AI. The third layer is government governance and community empowerment. Now let's tackle the first layer for a second. And in this example, I want to use a proposed smart city by Google's Sidewalk Labs. Sidewalk Labs was the driving force behind creating the sidewalk city on the riverfront in Toronto. It was shot down because they were narrowly focused on gathering big data, using that data with the public, barely knowing about it. When they dug beneath the surface, they found that the data was going to be sold to third party companies. So you have all this information, basically a ant farm. This city was supposed to be an ant farm for these tech companies, and they were just rubbing their hands together and like laughing like an evil bad guy in a cartoon. We got them now. And they were foiled. They were foiled again by the pesky kids who dug into the mystery and found out that these people were looking to exploit them and use that as a testing ground for the rest of the world. Now, it was shot down because community groups and activists dug into this, found out about it, and spread the information like wildfire. So it never came to fruition. But there was an article about it about maybe 3 weeks ago talking about how they're still trying to do this, but they're going to spread it out over a decade. So instead of doing it in a year and a half, they're going to do it over 10 years. So it's going to be a slow creep toward this big brother state. Now, they're going to start putting sensors and more microphones all around the city of Toronto. And you better
Mm.
bet your bottom dollar they're going to do the same thing in your cities. And some cities faster than normal, like New York is a city that is a testing ground for this smart manipulation or edification. So what's going on in Toronto is they're going to start putting up more user interface data gathering stations. And so what these are going to do is collect data from people and their interactions. It's going to count like how many people are on the street at this time of day. It's going to have all these bells and whistles that they promised at the beginning, which is the heated sidewalks and the heated streets to melt snow and ice. And of course, we'll have a way to fix potholes within a day and a half to 2 days because we'll have reports from the pavement or the asphalt where it caves in, and there'll be sensors in there. And when it caves in, we'll send a crew out the next day to fix it. Yeah, that all sounds great, but it can easily become nefarious. Now, while we're still on the first layer, I want to talk about the city of Camden, New Jersey. In 2013, Camden, New Jersey disbanded their police force because it was corrupt, highly corrupt, and ineffective. So it was disbanded. When they disbanded their police force, the police force was replaced by microphones and cameras everywhere, all over the city. And so now they have this system in place called Spot Shooter, and you can look this up. Spot Shooter is a private company that gathers all this information and they sell it to the police. And so basically, they provide the software. They provide the software that the police department uses because they don't have enough cops on the street to triangulate and use echolocation to gather the sound of a gunshot and tell you where it was, when it happened, and use cameras in that area to narrow down where the gunshot happened. So, again, this is where all cities are moving. All smart cities are going to be like this, with less police presence and more silent sentinels all around you, watching everything you do, recording everything you do. Now, This sounds safe, but it was once said by an old Masonic president. Well, he wasn't a president actually, but he was one of the guys who signed the Declaration of Independence. He said, people who will trade their freedom for safety deserve neither. Now, what you got to consider is that you won't be able to have any private conversations anymore. You're going to have some type of device in your pocket and in your companion's pocket that you turn on to create white noise or a cone of silence in the street. You won't be able to go inside of a building and have a private conversation because there's microphones in the walls. Don't be surprised that when your contractor friends or guys who build things start to tell you that, yeah, we're putting microphones in drywall now. Like we're installing microphones, these microphone boxes into drywall when we put up the studs and we put up the drywall when we build buildings now. These things are the future. Now, we have to fight against this future with regulation. A perfect example of this is the city of San Diego. San Diego, they began putting microphones and cameras in their street lights. So this is a step beyond the interstate microphones and cameras, and more uh, uh, they're more abundant. There's a greater abundance of cameras now throughout the city of San Diego. But when citizen activist groups found out about this, they railed back against the city hall and the police force, and they said, "Listen, you only need to use these when there's a threat. So unless there's like somebody there, like brandishing a weapon, you should only use that information there." But what happened is that the the San Diego PD, they started getting all this information and all this data because this thing was recording all the time, 24/7, and they didn't even know what to do with all the data. So then what they did then was they started to solve crimes and figure out, okay, well, there was an argument. Some guy got out of his car right here and shot somebody. All right, that's cool. That's all great and everything. But what about the people that are just standing under a street light because it's illuminated, smoking a cigarette, talking about something personal or talking about, some plans they don't want somebody hearing about? All this is private information. All this, but the argument is, oh, you're in a public space. Well, wait a minute. I didn't give you my consent to record anything. So cops want to shit their pants when somebody puts a cell phone in their face and they start recording them and talking about you don't have the right to record. You don't have the right to record me. You don't have the right to record me and my image and my likeness in any way without my permission. That is breaking the law. So you have all of these constitutional violations that are happening with these cameras and microphones that are being put up in all these different places. So it happened in San Diego. It happened in Oakland, California. It happened in other cities. But these examples I'm using to show you how this technology is slowly creeping in. When I started telling people about this, they had no idea. They had no idea there's cameras in street lights. They knew about the cameras on the interstate, but cameras in street lights started freaking people out.
And one of the examples, a short time ago, remember when Anonymous hacked these police servers, and that's when some of this information started slipping out that they were talking about doing this. Most of that information came out of California, and when you realize that they had been monitoring people the entire time, and I remember book you read back in high school was New World Order, and they were talking about. They were putting listening devices in all the new vehicles. Any vehicle after '96 had listening devices. They had talked about putting listening devices and cameras. Cameras in listening devices in the streetlights way back then. They said that was a plan, and of course they'll use things like 9/11. They'll use these national emergencies to arrest power. And we all talk about the Patriot Act, of course, but this shit is gradual. And you give up these rights, our kids aren't even used to having these rights. Our kids don't even recognize it. So but like I said, when you check out all the articles and all the information that was leaked by Anonymous, About these police databases. Most of that shit came out of Cali. I'm just giving y'all a heads up.
Okay, so the second layer we talked about is invisible data streams that are recorded and improved. And that is machine learning and AI. So let's step back a bit and zoom out and consider this from an ant farm type of scenario. When you have a box of humans inside the city going about living their lives, hustling and bustling every day. There's so much information to be gathered, but that isn't enough. That isn't enough to just let these people live their lives. So then they begin to use this whole sappy, idea of how businesses will have new horizons of business opportunities. Okay, what I'm hearing is manipulation. What I hear is that okay, well, I can put ads all over the place, just like that movie Minority Report, where the main character Tom Cruise was walking around town, which was D.C. in the future, and he was walking around town, and whenever he walked into a store, it scanned him and gave him a specific ad tailored just for him and his data, which means that say you and your wife decide to go out after a dinner and go and get some ice cream. And right as you turn the corner to walk into the ice cream parlor, it scans you and says, duct tape. You're a gun owner. Would you like to buy the new Smith and Wesson? Da 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 da
Mm.
blah 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 blah. And like you're like, I wasn't even thinking about that. I was
We all go through it.
hmm
We'll talk about something, then they send us a damn ad on Facebook. What the fuck
right, but see,
is
okay, okay, okay,
happening?
okay. But that's on a device. What I'm talking about
Yes,
is
yes.
this is inside the smart city, in your face on the street. So that when you walk by a digital billboard, if you're the only person around, that billboard will react to you.
Another thing that people don't realize when it comes to job wise, what these big companies and what the government's doing to gradually push us towards this shit, you no longer they no longer hire you. You have project people. They hire you for a project. So what that is,
Mm.
that's this is temporary. This is permanent temporary labor. So instead, where you would work for a big company, I don't want to give any names. I don't want to get in trouble. So you working for a big company and being in the department or whatever. Instead, they hire a group. They hire a project. So that project is completed. You have no rights to the product. You have no right to anything in the project. It was that thing. And then when that project's over, you don't work there anymore. So then you're hunting. So eventually, like again, legacy systems, what my brother talked about earlier. When Roscoe was talking about legacy systems, having permanent employment will be one of those things. And so again, all these things are separate. They're not. They're all related. So if you have a city of people who will work on projects, say that you were just working on the street. So now that what it used to be a career or job is now seasonal work. And every year you go out there and do. Yes, they're moving us towards this so that you'll be broke enough where you have to depend on the city, you have to depend on the government, and you have to live in an apartment. You can't afford to have a car. You got to commute, carpool, ride
But
share.
you won't. You
Uh,
won't have to do that because you'll have driverless cars. Why drive? Why get into accidents? It's so dangerous.
Eliminating an entire middle class of people when it comes to, and again, we said this before, trains, planes, and automobiles. Once you eliminate that work, that's 30% of the jobs out there. What next? And then we'll all be broke working on projects. And when the project is eliminated or the project is completed, you're not working. You're on unemployment. It's a hustle, and it's pushing you towards something, and you're,
Yes.
you're convinced that it's for your own good.
Okay. Now check this out. So they're always pushing towards something. Whether you give is up to you. If you have a cell phone that is not up to date, that is not the newest one, a person will say to you, "Ugh, how old is that thing? Oh man, look, I have the
All the
newest
time.
one." Okay, that
They're
person is a
snobbing you. They're
that
snobbing
person
you.
that person is an early adopter, and they always fall for the banana in the tailpipe. The problem with that is it is not isolated to just individuals. It's corporations, it's groups, it's cities, it's nations. Now, when one city adopts its smart city status, it feels like has the newest shoes. It feel like it has the newest phone. It feels like the coolest kid on the block. It's gonna hold his nose up or point his nose up at the rest of the cities around the world, saying we're leading the pack with smart cities.
Yes, yeah.
No, all you're
Hey,
doing. Hold on. I gotta finish this. All you're doing is basically saying is we are jumping into the volcano first. Come on in, the water is fine. No. The problem, hey, hold tight. The problem is that you have to use history as a lesson, as a teacher, because if you consider the lesson of the city of London, which is a private organization, it is not public. You consider the city,
Industrial Revolution started
yes,
there. That's when the Industrial Revolution
but
started.
listen, and they thought that they would have, they would be a powerhouse for generations to come on the surface, that is, because of the horse and buggy trade. The only problem is a guy in America named Henry Ford created the Model T out of hemp. Now, this car changed the game because it left the Brits in second place because the car created whole new business industries, car insurance.
Period.
It
Period. Yeah. Everything.
created an
Streets.
infrastructures, streets, highways, a highway system. It created drive-ins. It created shopping malls. It created everything that required you to use an automobile. It created courier services. It created all these things that people are ambulances, like you just heard in the background. You heard all these things that are based on the invention of the automobile that the Brits were not the first to do, and it gave the Americans the edge. So there you go. So the Brits were considered second fiddle to the Americans because the Americans were leading the technological wave with the invention of the automobile. And so that can be used as a learning lesson, as an example for what is coming with smart cities. Every city is going to be a smart city. Every city is going to be the cities you see in Westworld, outside the park, outside the ranch. It's going to be the futuristic cities you see in Westworld, just like that, with driverless cars and androids and people on the devices and being pushed around in these algorithms. And what happens after that, the next step after that, is human beings that are living lives that are being predicated based on their relevance. What I'm really saying is that human beings will be born into a caste system, and their entire life trajectory will be planned out as an algorithm, including the day they will die. All of that will be calculated. The day you die, the day you were born, everything in between will be an algorithm that is pre programmed by AI. And people in a higher caste will farm human beings of a lower caste like sheeple and determine the trajectory of their lives based on what it is they need these people to do. This is cloning without cloning. This is AI without robots, without computers. You are using take the code out and put humans in that place instead. You see? You see what's going on here? This you have to look beyond the smart city, because looking beyond the smart city shows you that humanity is being steered in a direction by people that are very wealthy and have a whole lot of privilege. You got to look further down the field. You got to see the field. That's the issue that this
One of
smart
the
city
things
proposes. Go ahead.
but we talked about this techocracy, and we talked about that, and so when you said a first adopter, those are people ideal for the techocracy because they're going to get sucked in right away. Like, hey, I got this. They don't care about the ramifications. They care about the fashion. They want to be a Kardashian.
They want to be
They
cute.
want to show, yeah, they want to show off this new product, and by doing that, you've already. One of the things I want to bring up, I can't remember. They have a smart wallet. I can't remember the name of the wallet, but all it is a thin piece of plastic where you put your cards in. You can put a little bit of money in, but guess what it has built in? This little bitty wallet has a built-in GPS tracker that is solar powered. So when you set your wallet out, it's charging the battery. And I'm like, okay, why do you? I get it, because if you lose your wallet, that's a bad thing. If your wallet gets stolen, that's a bad thing. But now they know exactly where you are at all times. And again, smart city. That oh, this person's here. They'll know who has money and who doesn't. Eventually, they'll be able to like, okay, you got this much cash on you. Because remember, cash has a scanner in it. That's how these people when they go outside the country, they fly, and they know if you take more than $10,000 outside the country, because you got to remember, $100 bills they have a scanner in them. So can you imagine if you go into a place, they know exactly how much money is in your pocket. They know we want this customer, we don't want this customer. Again, you're doing the exact same class system that we're trying to get away from, that America was based on getting rid of. And now we're subscribing to it willfully. You're an idiot. Watch this shit.
So, and that's what I'm really emphasizing here is that you have to look beyond the smart city. You have to see what is coming next. You listen, if you are playing checkers, you are going to get fucked up against a person who thinks like a chess player. So, the third layer of smart city is governance and community empowerment. A lot of this is based on the people that play the game. People that know how to play the game, people that know how to play politics well, because those are the people that will be allowed to excel and advance in government. And in a smart city, they're going to want people that want to uphold this system and not disrupt the
Certain
system.
certain values they're going to push to the forefront.
Hmm. And community empowerment. So, community empowerment will work only if these are people. Excuse me for a second. Excuse me. It will only work if these are people that are wanting to have, let's say, little league disputes, and nothing greater than can I have a lemonade stand?
Hmm.
You can't be the person talking about, okay, listen, this is great, but I want to talk about the immigration issue. I want to talk about what's going to happen, when all of these androids that are walking around want to get married to clones. You can't let clones and androids get married. That's just not going to happen. So you can't have these voices of dissension.
You just said something real deep, brother. And I didn't think of. You just said something real deep. One of the things they're going to probably push this smart city is going to be the immigration, because if you're not microchipped, they'll know, and then that person will be from Mexico or Canada, and we need to get rid of those people. Trust me, this smart city shit, they will use immigration to push this shit down your throat too. So just pay attention. You just said some deep shit, but pay attention to that. That's one of the next steps for selling this shit to the good white people of America.
Indeed, but that's okay. So, say if you have a smart city in Indiana, what are these smart cities in conservative areas going to be like? What are these smart cities in very thinly veiled racist areas going to be like? How will they use this to oppress people? Because oppression will always be around. They're always going to find a
Hmm.
way to oppress a person based on their looks or their beliefs. And so see, this is the problem where I have smart cities. Smart cities is benign technology until you use it the wrong way.
Until it's
And
applied.
and
Yeah.
and human beings keep doing this over and over and over. They keep releasing this potentially harmful technology into the public and letting them use it however they will. This laissez-faire, do as you will mentality. And when you start having these disruptions, when you start having these people that who have power, who control and influence public sector and public and the public discourse, then there starts to be this blocking of information. So this is what I really want to say. All right, there's a chance this show is being shadow banned. There's a chance this show is being shadow banned, and I'm pretty sure of it. And it's being shadow banned because of what we say and our take on it, and the fact that we don't censor ourselves. Extrapolate that beyond a platform like social media. Extrapolate that into the smart city. So then you have guys like you and me and people out there that think differently, that have revolutionary ideas. How do you contain these people? How do you put these people in a cone of silence?
Social engineering.
Exactly. Exactly.
Punish us.
But look,
Don't give don't give us points.
sure, but then use walls to do that. Use invisible walls to do that. I'm going to what I'm going to do in this part of town. I am going to throttle down the Wi-Fi connection. I'm going to throttle down.
That's deep. Oh my goodness.
There was a comedian. There's a
Let the church
comedian.
say amen.
Amen. There was a comedian years ago had a joke about his white comedian said his cell phone never worked in black neighborhoods, so that's why he never went to black neighborhoods. That was a joke, but it's also true that you
True.
know,
Very true.
yeah. So, but the thing is, when you have people that go against the grain, instead of tear gassing these people, instead of firebombing these people, arresting these people, throwing them in paddy wagons, taking them to jail, let's take away services. Let's give them reduced services so that the people who come up in that area want to leave that area, don't want to return, don't want to help their people or their neighbors or
Improve
their
that area. Want
relatives
to improve that
or
area.
improve that area who live in that area. They want to escape
Look.
to the better part of town that has better
Hmm.
internet connection, that has better VR clubs, that has better VR lounges, that has better driverless cars that aren't all graffitied up, that has all of these things that are considered higher quality. When you go to a better part of town to go shop for a pair of shoes or to buy a suit,
Look. We've been telling you
or
guys
it
for years.
has no black businesses in it.
Whatever they do to black people, they will do to poor white people and the rest of America second. So
The
what
history
you're
of
talking about is
the
redline.
history of black people, of African people, is the future for white people.
Redlining. People think redlining is forcing you to live in a certain neighborhood, ghetto, whatever you want to call it. But redlining began with like insurance companies. Like if you lived in a certain
Dude,
area
it almost
code, they
happened to
would not
you.
get. Yeah, yeah, I know, I know, and we're talking about like the 1800s, late 1800s, but this is still going on today. So black folks weren't allowed to buy life insurance; they could buy burial insurance. So if you lived in a certain zip code, they would not allow you to
Yeah.
buy life
Y'all
insurance.
can't
So they
live,
would
but
not
y'all niggas
allow.
can die.
Yeah, but you can get $500 so you can bury your loved ones, but you can never get 5,000, 10,000, et cetera, et cetera. They literally based on that's how redlining starts. Now the point I'm trying to make is that they perfected it on us. Now they're doing it to everybody else. Here's another thing my brother just said that's real deep, and we brought it up before. I live downtown, but I used to live in a black part of town. And so you got all these 5G towers everywhere. Literally on Lake Street, you got five of them on Lake Street. You got two or three over here on Hamilton. You got all these 5G towers, but I still got shitty cell phone service.
Mm.
What are they there for? Because let's just say, for instance, they're not turned on yet. Let's say that it still goes back to whenever you heard these crazy people talking about low level radiation poisoning, et cetera, et cetera. If these towers aren't making my cell phone better, why do I have to sit here and have this hum in my head? Why am I sitting here with
Okay.
a third titty and shit?
Let's talk about
Look,
that. Let's talk about that. So like, okay, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, there were these in Eastern Europe and parts of the U.S., northeastern U.S. There were porcelain companies that made porcelain dishes, and they used a certain type of radioactive compound
God,
called radium, right? And radium was used to put on these dishes to give them a glow, right? And it was also used on watches to make watches, the face of a watch or the hands of a watch, glow in the dark.
flow, yep,
Right now, when you look up, if you look up radium woman or radium ladies, you'll see these people that worked in these factories, and they would use the radium all day, and they would lick the radium. They would lick it. They would lick the tip of the paintbrush that they were using. They would put it in their mouth, and over time, what you saw is people who had their jawbone dissolved. So if you look up radium ladies, you'll see like photographs of people whose jawbone dissolved. And these are work hazards. These are work hazards these people weren't warned about, right? So this is an environmental hazard. What if you're working in a place that has a 5G tower that is putting out a lot of electromagnetic frequency and radiation? So when you're living close to these towers and you're living close to these areas, working in these areas that have a lot of electromagnetic radiation, it's like standing next to a microwave from the 1950s that has horrible shielding.
Look, what we're trying to warn you guys about is the fact that they're making it commonplace to be sick. They're making it commonplace to have these diseases, and they're not protecting you, but they're convincing you it's necessary or it's just a hazard of to do business. It's a hazard of this modern society, and it's not. They got the information, they got the technology to make it safer. But they don't. They don't want to do that.
Yep. So they always want to tell you about it afterwards. They want to tell you about
Hmm.
the hazards of smoking the compounds that are in cigarettes decades, a century after they've been selling them. They don't want to tell
After you're
you
hooked,
after you're hooked. They don't want to tell you about the dangers of increased electromagnetic radiation in our society, not just from 5G, but from everything. Not until 100 years, 150 years after these things have been commonplace, after they
the
found a
thing,
way to
the
cover
way
it
they
up.
got you, the way they got you mind fucked is there's no such thing as safe levels of radiation. Do you
Mm-hmm.
understand that? There's no such thing. Now, low levels of radiation won't hurt you over a short period, but if it's a long, prolonged period of time, it will hurt you. In fact, I saw this interview with this CIA guy, and he was saying that you're supposed to turn your Wi-Fi off when you go to sleep. You're not supposed to sleep with radiation going into your head. And so when if I said it right now, y'all would say I'm crazy, some kind of paranoid nut, right? Look it up. That's all I can tell you. Look it up. When you realize this low level, prolonged exposure to radiation is not healthy for anybody. And that's what we're giving you a heads up. And they're going to tell you that this is part of that. Let's go back to the original subject, smart city. They're going to tell you that that's part of being in a smart city. You know what that's part of being? That's part of being in a cancer society. Because one of the biggest industries nowadays is cancer. So what if we give it to you on purpose and treat you on purpose, and we charge you $25,000 for 3 or 4 pills? Yes, it's a hustle. They're not trying to cure you. They're trying to create a damn a return customer. Whether we get you with the cancer and you die, or we get you with the prescription, they gonna get you a lifelong customer. That's all they give a fuck about. We're all industries. That's all this is. This is all about an industry.
So industry and government are bedfellows now,
They
and
should be, but they are.
they're
Yes.
closely related. But for that reason, some industries have been deregulated. Now, that's a whole can of worms I'm not really going to go into right now about deregulation because it's not enough time. What I will say is that there has to be checks and balances, even more so nowadays, because the people that are in local and state and federal government, you have to vet these people. Because when it comes to governance in smart cities, governance is what is going to steer the future of that smart city either toward a full on dystopia or toward some sci fi utopia. And you have to be careful about the people that you elect and put in there. But you always have to keep an eye on them because this is not the old days when you could just let, you know, people get into office and hope they would do good. You now have to like follow up on these people all the time. You have to make it your business to watch city council meetings. You have to when you pass by those signs, you're driving around your city and you see that a yellow sign that says this area is proposed to be zoned and will be discussed in a city hall meeting on this date. You better take your ass down there or hire a person to go and give them $20 to sit in there for an hour and record the minutes of that meeting. Now, you think I'm being, just I'm over the top with this. I'm not. I'm not exaggerating. This is actually something that benefits you in the long run because you need to start monitoring the people that are governing your local area, because the people in your local area will build things. These buildings will go up and it'll have all these modifications and all these Wi-Fi towers and G5 towers. And before you know it, they've built it right up next to your house. And then you're angry. But the problem is the joke's on you because you waited until it was too late. You waited until it was too late, and now there's nothing you can do short of going and get a bulldozer and knocking it down. So again, you have to be vigilant and you have to ask the tough questions. And if you do have the time, go to that meeting. Go to that meeting and talk to those people and raise your hand and be like, I object. I object to this proposal. This is not going to move the community forward in a direction that is helpful in the long run. So you have to engage in your local government because your local government is the one that is approving smart cities. They're approving smart cities and the details of the smart city. So that means you have to get in on these meetings and figure out what the nuts and bolts of these new walls that are going to be going up around your town or around your city. Because going back to what we were saying earlier, they are planning to put up walls around city. They're just invisible walls. Now think about this. Every time you move between cities, every time you go from outside the city to inside the city to the wildlands, they will know because you have a tracker on you. Now, right now, it's just your phone. Right now, it's your car. There's ways to get around that. Turn off your locator on your phone. Unless you're using a GPS map, turn off your locator on your phone. Whenever you are not using that map, whenever you are not using Lyft or you're not using Uber, you're not using anything that requires you to find the location, turn off the locator in your phone. Okay, another thing I recommend people learning how to do, and there's tutorials on YouTube or online, take the microphone out of your phone. It is not the handset microphone that you speak into. It's a separate microphone that is in your phone that is being used to collect data on you. All right? Another thing you can do is take a small piece of tape and put it over the front facing camera on your phone. All right? If you are not using that phone for, for video chats, which I mean you really don't need. I mean, really people, do you need to video chat every fucking minute of your life? No. You don't. You can keep the camera on the back of your phone uncovered and photograph with that. No problem. But a camera in your face every time you grab the phone, that data is going somewhere. And that data is now going to be part of a city that's going to triangulate your location, that's going to say exactly what you have on, and the expression on your face when you walked into this building and got into an altercation. And then when you finally get arrested or you sat down by the Adjustment Bureau or the Mental Behavior Bureau, and they'll say, well, Mr. Johnson, it appears at 5:15 p.m. before you walked into the furniture store, you had just had an argument and you were in a bad mood. Why were you in a bad mood before you went in there and had another argument with the person behind the counter who you then got into an altercation with? Well, I didn't start the fight. I didn't hit them first. Are you sure? Because we have video footage that tells us otherwise. And we got the data from your phone. And of course we didn't have to ask for that. So we just gathered that information because we got it from a third party company because you clicked OK on that whenever you bought the phone. So you see what's going on here? You're giving away all your information. You're giving away your sovereignty. You're giving away your rights. You're giving away everything that makes you individualistic and free. And you're moving into this city. In this city you'll be in, where you have no rights, no freedom, and you're in that ant farm. So, what are you going to do to prevent yourself from being manipulated in this way? Because soon you'll be living a life where everything is planned out for you and there's no free will. How do you exist in a place like that? Do you go outside to the wildlands and throw away all your electronic devices and live free? Or do you coexist in this world and you fight for your rights every day, every opportunity that you have to go in front of your local government and tell them, I don't want this in my neighborhood. I don't want this in the city. This is not going to work because this is infringing on my constitutional rights. I really strongly recommend people get the little small handbook that has the Constitution in it. Because in that Constitution, read it as it is. Don't get an abridged version or no, excuse me, don't get an unabridged version. Don't get a don't get one that's edited. All right, don't get one that's edited so your stupid little brain can figure it out. Take the time to learn it as it is, and the Bill of Rights. Learn the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, and know these things, so that when people begin to violate these rules and break these rules, you will then see it right away, and you can call it on its face surface, on its face value, as it is.
Look, one of the things that people, whenever it comes to that city council meeting, they be advertising shit in the newspaper all the time. It can be everything from toxic waste to air quality in a certain area. You might not realize this, but all the things that happen have been debated about. Like, oh, we put a factory here. Yeah, we realize it's going to contaminate the water and the air, but that's in the black part of town. We don't give a fuck. And so when you recognize that this has been debated and talked about for a year and a half, and you could have done something about it, or you could have said, you know what, I don't want that in my part of town. That's what you're missing out on. So get your head out your ass is what we're saying. That's all. Participate in this government. That's how it works the best when you participate.
Also, apply a different type of thinking to your everyday activities. Be cognizant. Be cognizant of the things you see around you, articles you may come across that, or headlines you may come across that speak about smart cities, that speak about technology. You can no longer be ignorant to these things. You can't. That this relaxed type of thinking, this lazy type of thinking is no longer allowed if you want to remain free. If you want to be, listen, if you want to be a slave, man, hey, be a slave. Okay, cool. That is your thing. But I ain't no motherfucking slave, and I'm not gonna let my people be a slave or be enslaved. And so, because of that, I am aware, and I stay vigilant to changes in my environment that do not benefit me or my people. And I will do everything in my power to speak on it and make you aware of it so that you can make change in your local community where it matters before it becomes a national issue. It always starts small. It's like Egg Shen said in the beginning of Big Trouble in Little China. It always starts very small. And that's how it starts, with a thought, with an idea. And then money gets involved. And that money gets involved and it becomes a project. And that project goes to a planning committee. And that planning committee starts to figure out how to do that. And then if it's local, they got to go through the red tape of dealing with politicians. Those local politicians, they're going to have a meeting about it, like Duct Tape said, and either you are yay or nay for this issue. So again, make yourself aware of these changes that are happening around you. Smart cities are coming, and from what I see, it's mostly not some cool shit. All right, because I love freedom. I'm a freedom lover. And guess what else? I'm a free breather. Yeah, that's right. I like to go raw. I'm not a fan of wearing masks. I wear a mask if it's necessary. But if you see me in the street, you probably see my plain face. So, that should tell you something. But again, these smart cities are full of things that record you, things that shape you, things that monitor everything you do. We are moving
Like
towards the
cattle.
future like
Hmm.
cattle. We are moving to a future where you'll be born and everything about you will be decided. Probably even the people you marry and mate with. So that's something else to consider. Listen, for people who want to shorthand on all this bullshit, watch a bunch of sci-fi movies. Okay, watch a bunch of sci-fi movies, and you will see what the fuck is coming. All right. If you don't know,
Soylent Green. Soylent Green.
listen. If you want some starting places for everything that's happening, watch a handful of movies. You can watch uh, iRobot. You can watch They Live. You can watch the new TV series Brave New World. If you really want to see where things are going, watch the new TV series on Peacock, the NBC's online platform, called Brave New World. Because in that show, everybody takes drugs so they won't feel anything. It's a hedonistic society where everybody has sex with whoever they want. There are no parents. Everybody's a test tube, baby. And it's like some Logan Run shit. There's nobody over 30 years old in this fucking society. So that should tell you something. Once you age out, you're fucked.
And there was something that Richard Pryor said back in what 77 and bicentennial nigga. He said, I was watching this movie about the future. It's called Logan's Run, and I noticed something about Logan's Run. Ain't no niggas in that
That's
motherfucker.
right.
He said white folks ain't planning for us to be here.
Right.
He's telling you, like, look at these futuristic movies. Now I get it. Hollywood was white, so if that's what you're thinking, fine. But if you pay attention, this is the white man's ideal society. Ain't got no black folks in it.
Okay.
or you live out in the Badlands.
But this is what I'm saying. Just because it got black people in it, don't make the shit okay. Don't fall for that bullshit either.
Don't fall for that. Don't fall for the Willy Bobo. No, I got you.
No. Don't fall for the token Negroes. Don't fall for the token Negro black director. Don't fall for that either. Just because there's a black director, just because this person made a movie about slavery before, just because this person, is all black this and black that, and they're making this show about devil worship, or they're making a show that has all this hidden secrecy and like symbolism in it. Just because this person is making this show with all these hidden signs and all these things that are proved and okay, all this amoral type of mentality that's against the nuclear family. Yeah, I went there. Against the nuclear family. That does not mean it's okay. All right. Again, don't fall. They're what they're doing. They're pandering to you. All right. They're doing this shit to basically make you feel like that you're valued. Okay. They want you to feel like you're valued.
One of the okay, I know we're wrapping the show up, but one of the artists that bugs the hell out of me because you need to follow his career. Childish Gambino. Watch his whole career because he tried to be a comedian, he fucked that up. He tried to do this, he fucked that up. He fucked up a bunch of shit. Now all of a sudden he's in style, and so he comes out with this song Redbone, and everybody jumps on it. But I'm like, he's not even with a black girl. He's with a white woman. I'm like, okay, so I'm like, what his art that he's pushing on you says one thing, but his actual life says something different. So then when he comes out with this song, This Is America, and he has some guns in it, and everybody's like, it's anti-gun. I'm like, why y'all listening to him? Because he don't even abide by the shit that he puts out there. He feeds you one thing, but he lives a different way. And that's what we got to understand about these artists and the people, these actors and the directors. How are they actually living? You know what I'm saying? Watch how they actually live because people love to tell you how they live now. They let you in their home. But people, what their art is and what they're providing and what they're selling to you is one thing, but how they actually live is something different. And that's what we need to worry about. What are they doing with their kids?
The idol worship, stop with the idol worship. Okay? Black people, stop with the idol worship. Stop with that and stop with the fucking cosplay. All right? Stop with that. I'm not talking about cosplay from like, I like the Avengers, I like DC Comics, I like Dragon Ball Z. No. That's not what I'm talking about.
He's talking about pretending like you're a cop, pretending like you're this, or pretending like you're that, pretending like you're some kind of religious figure. Cut that shit the fuck out. Grow the hell up and participate in your society. And have something how about this? Have something to contribute. Because a lot of your motherfuckers ain't got shit to contribute. All you do is making carbon dioxide. And now your mask is fucking that up. Look, Get up off your ass and be a person. Shit, that's all I'm saying.
Hey, listen, be active in your community. Be active in the decisions that are made to change the actual physical, geographical landscape in the place that you live. Because a smart city will be up around you with invisible walls, and you will be in this new Tower of Babel with the beautiful wildlands on the outside with no Wi Fi connection at all, no cell service. And you got to make a choice. Do I want to be out there? Or do I want to be a slave in here? How do I exist? That's all I got.
Holla back.
Peace.